Yeah.
You tell me the number.
In percentage,
Yeah.
ya Pak ya. In percentage,
I'm saying you take the absolute value. They are able to do it because they are paying lower royalty and they're
Yeah.
not meeting their DMO, some of them. They prefer to pay the penalty and not supply PLN.
yeah.
Now, we
But
don't want to do that.
this year they cannot pay the penalty. They should also supply the PLN, right? Nobody can avoid the
You see, the
DMO.
problem really is that the policy has been unequally applied. We hope that there can be more fairness in the implementation of the policy. The second problem is that PLN likes KPC coal and they like Arutmin coal. Their specifications meet their specifications. So if other people are unable to supply, like the smaller ones, there's no DMO on them. They just get away scot-free in the past. Now, then they come back to Bumi saying, oh, you have not supplied this contract. We have not supplied the contract because they didn't call up the contract. They were buying from other people. And when other people fail, then they come back to Bumi saying, we're running out of power. We want an export ban. We want this, we want that.
Okay. So I think...
so that is why we think that the policies that are being talked about currently by the regulators and by the government are positive because hopefully they can level the playing field across all the coal producers when it comes to DMO.
Okay.
They're talking about blue and all that, but I hope that there can be some certainty surrounding that regulation and how it will be implemented because that's important.
Okay.
But to answer your dividend question, I think our objective is to try and accelerate that as quickly as possible. And that is an internal management and a controlling shareholder objective as well, I would think. And the management will work very hard to see that it happens. If we can accelerate the process, we will accelerate the process. But at this point of time, we are busy building up earnings.
Yeah, I'm aware
and that by itself is a very positive sign which can improve we hope that it can improve sentiment in the market and there can be a capital appreciation on the share price.
Okay. And now, Pak, I want to ask you about the ESG trend, Pak. How Bumi see coal prospect amid the ESG trend right now? And I know that you already state that you will go diverse within these 5 to 10 years. And how tight the coal supply prospect in the next few years, as we know that the contract price of 2025 and 2027 is rising high to the new record and not far behind the 2022 contract.
I'm trying to process your questions because you asked too many questions in one question.
Okay, ESG first.
Tell me, just ask me a simple question.
ESG first. What do you think about the Bumi prospect ahead with the ESG?
See, when it comes to ESG, definitely Bumi is heads and shoulders above any other coal company.
Okay.
Even though its production from 2003 has gone up by 3 or 4 times, it is now 90 million capacity versus 23 million then, which is almost 4 times. Our ESG and our CSR and our reclamation and our replanting and whatever we are doing to manage the environment well has gone up by 7 or 8 times.
Okay.
And we have been doing that from 2003 because you must remember who the previous owners of KPC and Arutmin were.
Yep.
They were very well known, highly respected multinational companies out of Australia and UK. And they had excellent ESG and they had excellent human resource and they had excellent CSR policies. They had excellent reclamation policies. They had excellent water management policies. All we have done is we have inherited this system and we've grown our production 3 or 4 times, but we've also upgraded and enhanced our ESG and climate sensitivity and pollution sensitivity by a factor of 7 or 8.
Okay.
Now, when you talk profit, we also spend a lot of money on making sure this happens.
Okay.
Now, nobody asks us how much do we spend on ESG, how much do we spend on climate sensitivity, how much do we spend on reclamation, how much do we spend on the community. Nobody asks the question. But
yeah.
I notice that people keep asking, oh, Adaro's doing this and Bayan is doing that and this and that. Actually, we are doing far more. Our safety standards are the best globally in the resource sector.
Okay.
Our lost time injury frequency rate is the lowest. And even the bonus structure for our employees and workers is linked to safety. If there is any safety issue, etc., they may sacrifice their bonus. They may not get any for 1 quarter. So it is in the DNA of the employees on ESG, on climate sensitivity, on safety. And even at the Bumi board level, there's a huge sensitivity to this. Any board meeting, we always talk about ESG first. We spend half an hour on it. And if there's any safety issue, we discuss the safety issue for 15 minutes, half an hour to see what happened and how can we avoid it next time.
Okay. And but maybe this is the last question.
Now, what's the second question?
Yeah, this is the last question to close meeting today. How about you see about the coal prospect within the next 5 years? Because as I see about the contract price of the
Can
coal.
I ask you one question, Bernard?
Yes.
What is your personal view?
I think all the green energy is still not big enough to substitute the coal power plant, even in the next 10 to 15 years. But this small shifting will affect the demand even for 10 to 20%, and the price cannot be much more higher than 250, 300 maybe. I think that's the peak price for the coal.
You see, nobody is a crystal ball gazer.
Yeah.
If you had asked me 3 years before, what is going to happen 3 or 4 years later, nobody could have forecast the pandemic. Nobody could have forecast the energy crisis. Nobody could have forecast La Nina. Nobody could have forecast the Russian war in Ukraine. And nobody can forecast what will happen between China and Taiwan. We don't know what will happen between India and Pakistan.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Now, if you're unable to forecast these things, then it doesn't make sense to forecast things like price and this and that. But one thing you can definitely forecast is that the green sector is very aggressive. They have a lot of funding available to them, and they have created a hysteria about green. And they appear to have lost a little reason surrounding energy transition versus energy security.
Yeah.
So if you follow them blindly and you stop coal overnight tomorrow, you stop oil tomorrow, you stop gas tomorrow, 3/4 of the world will be in darkness.
Yeah, I'm agree with that.
So I think we just need to be realistic on transition. And I agree with you that while COP26 talked about 2030, they're talking about a net carbon zero. They're not talking about phasing out carbon. Now, India has said 2070. China has said 2060. Indonesia has said 2060. So what is the hysteria about removing it tomorrow?
Yeah.
You've got to have a balanced, well thought out plan for energy transition.
Yes.
Because you cannot get rid of power demand overnight, nor can you meet it overnight. If you take coal, you take oil, and you take gas out of the equation, then that's 80% of how power is produced in the world. So basically, they have to coexist Because wind and solar, number one, we question their economics because there are people who talk about a levelized cost of electricity, which does not take into account storage, which does not take into account peak loads and and low loads. They don't take into account the weather issue. That when you have sun, you have solar. When you don't have sun, you have nothing. And it's the same with wind. That when you have wind, you have wind. If you don't have wind, you have nothing. So then you need storage batteries. Now, how much storage batteries do you need? It means, again, you are polluting the world by mining more of the metals and resources to make the storage batteries. And the second problem with wind and solar, which I don't know, you are an analyst and you study these things, is what do you do with the solar panels after 20 years or 30 years? Because every year they are losing their efficiency by 2-3%.
How to
Their
recycle?
useful life is 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
Now, you cannot, they are indestructible. You cannot use them for any other purpose. So you're creating more pollution. And the same is with wind. You have the turbine blades. Now, you have to replace them after 20 years, 30 years, but you can't get rid of them. They are not something you can burn. They are not something you can use as fertilizer. They are not something you can mobilize like carbon dioxide. You can use it for commercial purposes, but you cannot do that for the solar panels, nor for the wind what you call blades.
Yeah.
So you're creating a problem for the future. And that's going to be costly trying to get rid of it unless you want to put it only in landfills and create mountains of waste material. So you'll have the same problem as nuclear waste, where US and Europe will be sending it to Indonesia or to some other places.
Yeah. Only exporting the waste.
Yeah, that will be a new business, a new renewable business.
Exactly.
So my point to address your issue, basically, institutions and banks are not lending for coal projects.
Yes.
The population in the world has grown from 2 billion to 8 billion and will go to 10 billion in the next 5 to 10 years. Power demand is going to increase. There's only 5 feedstock that can supply. Oil and gas, you have reserves for the next 30 or 40 years, then in any case, you got to get rid of them. Economic coal can be mined for the next 50 years, maybe 75 years or 100 years. Thereafter, you will need a solution. But of course, Indonesia has 200 years, but it depends upon how feasible it is to take it out. Okay. Now, the problem basically comes if you're getting no funding and if transition is going to take 40 years and if green hysteria is there where you say that you don't need coal at all, how are you going to meet the future demand? Because renewables are unreliable. They're too small to matter. They're 1 or 2% of the global mix. Hydro is less than 10%. It's probably about 5%. Geothermal is geographically restricted. You can do small quantities and only where there are volcanoes. You can't do it anywhere else.
Yep.
Biomass is far too small to even talk about. So you're left with gas and you can't afford gas because the price is too high.